The meeting of the Planning Board, Borough of Somerville for September 11th, 2024 will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Public Meeting Act, has been provided that on a copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was posted on the bulletin board outside of Borough Hall, mailed, faxed, or emailed to the Courier News, and given to the Clerk Administrator. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call.
Chairman Novato is excused this evening. Mayor Gallagher.
Here.
Councilman Vroom.
Here.
Ms. Adair. Mr. Carestas. I did not hear from him. I don't know if he notified Jenna or not. Mr. Cleveland.
Here.
Mr. Addix.
Here.
Mr. Krasker as the acting vice chair.
Here.
And Ms. Werner as acting chair.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could remain standing for a moment of silence for 9/11, please, and all the victims. Thank you.
It was at the table.
We need a motion for minutes for, can we do these separate? Because I'm going to have to abstain from one.
Yes, do you want to do it with the office?
First, we can? Yep.
Okay, so, Mr. Addix, you're going to take the oath of office to assume your new position on the board. So I ask that you please raise your right hand. I, Christopher Addix,
I, Christopher Addix,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of the office of regular planning board member
perform all the duties in office of regular planning board member
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. All right, thank you. I prepared a speech. All right.
All right, so let's start with the minutes from the regular session for July 24th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Mayor Gallagher.
Yes.
Councilman Vroom.
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Addix.
Yes.
And Mr. Krasker.
Yes.
And Ms. Werner.
Abstain. And now for August 28th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Gallagher.
Yes.
Councilman Vroom.
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Abstain.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Addix.
Yes.
Mr. Krasker.
Yes.
And Ms. Werner.
Yes. And our last one for our executive session on August 28th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Gallagher.
Yes.
Councilman Vroom.
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Abstain.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Addix.
Yes.
Mr. Krasker.
Yes.
Ms. Werner.
Yes. Okay, we have no pending resolutions. Just for everybody's awareness, we will be revisiting the front yard fence ordinance revisions within the next couple of meetings. That is still pending business for us. All right, so our next up, requests for amendments to Resolution PB 24-0111-001.
So moved.
Second.
Wait.
And just to clarify, this will start at which meeting? We do have an upcoming meeting, I believe, scheduled for the 18th as well as the 24th.
So it's going to start on the 18th, right? Yes.
All right, motion second.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Gallagher.
Yes.
Councilman Vroom.
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Addix.
Yes.
Mr. Krasker.
Yes.
Ms. Werner.
Yes. All right, so this brings us to request for amendment to resolution for approval. This is for the New Jersey Elixir Company. They are requesting, sorry, let me get my notes here. An amendment to the resolution to remove the specific time restraints on the operation of the business and confirmation that the applicant may use the side exit for egress in the event of a fire so as not to cause any occupancy issues. They are asking to have these removed or changed.
What were the restrictions on the?
So the timing restriction, I went back and looked, it is 12 to 12. They are the ones that offered that in the beginning of their testimony. There was no conversation about that, like, we didn't bring it up, it wasn't like, that's what we settled on. It was just, they said the hours were 12 to 12. Go ahead.
Now they want,
Compliant with the borough ordinance.
With any other laws, or, yeah.
okay, well then, that's what they're asking for, not just no restriction, just
No.
borough
They
restriction.
would have to,
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah, so it would be amended to compliance with borough ordinance.
not just removal.
Yeah.
Correct, and we'll have a little procedure that we need to go through before we actually make a vote, but let's go through the second one. I don't know if there's anyone here tonight to discuss this? Okay, the second one.
The second one is an egress issue, but this is an issue for, that they need an easement. So we really don't have the purview to bypass that restriction, so I don't see.
What the condition was they had asked to use that side egress, and we had said if you provide proof that you're entitled to do it by way of an easement, that was one of the conditions. The ability to utilize it from a building or a fire code standpoint, that's outside of our jurisdiction
Yeah.
anyway. So, that, in my opinion, we really can't do very much about. The other one we certainly can. The procedure, and we've done this a couple times before, the board is allowed to amend a condition without notice and without an additional public hearing, provided that that change in the condition would not have affected the vote of the board members.
Right.
Otherwise, if by considering that condition it may have affected your vote, then we have to go back and we have to renotice it and have another hearing. So,
I have one other question. The door in question is like an emergency fire door.
I believe so, right?
How did it get there to begin with? Was the property one owned property at one time and now it's subdivided? Because if somebody put in a fire door, there must have been an intent to use it as a safety issue. So if it's there and it wasn't like a door for entering and exiting on a normal basis, that was put there sometime, some way by someone who said, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it might have been the handshake from 60 years ago.
Okay.
I agree, it's been there for a long, long time, because like, my board remembers, like, pointed out it was rusty and about 1 million years old. It needs freshening up, but I'm sure it goes back to a handshake agreement or verbal, should they can't find an easement, because that's typically how a lot of these things were done 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I hope, it's been there for, the question is, it's been
But
there
that's-
for a long, long time.
That's still on them to figure out with their neighbors, not us.
Yeah, we have no purview over that.
Right. And they very, very well may need to go get that now. If it was a handshake and it wasn't something that was reported, that's certainly something that they can enter into now with the adjacent property owner and figure that out. But again, outside of our purview.
So can we split this then and then vote on amending it just for the hours?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Okay, do I need,
absolutely.
So I-
So the first, is everyone here, did you vote on the original application?
Yes.
Everyone here, okay. So that would be the first thing. Would amending this condition to remove the specific time restrictions proposed by the applicant of 12 to 12 to the regular borough ordinance requirements of 12 to 2, would that have changed anyone or affected anyone's decision on approving the application?
No.
No.
Okay. So if we could just have a vote on that issue first, and then we'll move on to actually changing the condition.
Do we need a motion on that? How do we?
Motion and second.
All right, so I'll make a motion to, I don't know, how do you even word that?
A motion to,
Amend the resolution.
No, because we're not amending yet.
A motion to determine that amending the condition that I referenced would not have changed your determination with regard to the application.
I motion that.
I'll second.
Mayor Gallagher,
Yes.
Councilman Vroom,
Yes.
Ms. Adair, Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Addicks,
Yes.
Mr. Krasker,
Yes.
Ms. Werner.
yes.
Mr. Cleveland, if you can just lean into your microphone.
Pardon me, excuse me.
Just, they're not picking it up on the stream.
That's a first.
Wait till I start singing.
All right, so now I'll make a motion to amend the resolution from the 12 to 12 hours to the borough's ordinance of 12 to 2 a.m.
Second.
Mayor Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilman Vroom?
Yes.
Ms. Adair? Mr. Cleveland?
Yes,
Mr. Addicks?
Yes.
Mr. Krasker?
Yes.
Ms. Werner?
Yes.
I will revise the resolution to amend that condition. I'll advise applicant's counsel, and we'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, on to our next one, a request for filing extension. This is property address 382 East Main Street. This is, they applied for a minor subdivision of their property, and they are looking for an extension on this as they are still waiting for some resolution on the county end, which we think will hopefully be soon, but they are asking for a slight extension on that.
No issue with it. I'll move to,
Anyone here on behalf of that application?
why is the county holding them up?
there was an error made originally and the paperwork to go back and forth. It's not that they haven't been doing their due diligence.
Yeah, it's not on them.
Yeah,
It's
the short
paperwork.
answer is, on the subdivision plot, the county required them to show a potential building, but they have no plans for a building right now on the subdivision, it's just a paper line.
Yes,
When the county reviewed it, they looked at it as a home, as a house. So they then required perk tests and driveway location. So I had a discussion with Mike, we had a discussion with the county, and the county is now reviewing that again.
great, thank you.
What's the extension that we give?
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to give the filing extension for 1 year for doing.
Mayor Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilman Vroom?
Yes.
Ms. Adair? Mr. Cleveland?
Yes,
Mr. Addicks?
Yes.
Mr. Krasker?
Yes.
Ms. Werner?
Yes. Okay, we are now on to our hearing for a concept review for 201-217 West Main Street Associates.
Just getting set up here, but I'll just start by saying good evening, members of the board, members of the public, board professionals. My name is Michael Silbert, and I'm an attorney at the law firm D. Francesco Bateman, located in Warren Township, New Jersey. It's my privilege tonight to represent 201-217 West Main Street Associates, LLC, in connection with this conceptual review. This review primarily concerns the property located at Block 130, Lot 1, commonly known as 201-217 West Main Street, also commonly referred to as the Granites Building. The concept plan before you this evening also includes Block 124.01, Lot 14, which is an existing parking lot with frontage on Veterans Memorial Drive, and we envision that this lot will continue to be used as such. So tonight's focus will primarily be on the beautifully designed conceptual building shown in your packets. And we're just trying to get that loaded up here on the screens. The Granites Building is located in the borough's B2 zoning district. However, I'm not going to spend time discussing the borough's existing zoning for this site. We are seeking to construct this project by way of redevelopment. And before I introduce the managing member of the applicant and contract purchaser, as well as our architect, Mr. Brian Taylor, who has worked carefully with the borough's RDC for many months putting together the conceptual design before you this evening, I would like to make just a few remarks that speaks to the heart of why we're here this evening. So the board is no stranger to conceptual reviews and redevelopment. You know the power of redevelopment better than anyone. Somerville is the model for many municipalities across the county and the state for redevelopment projects done right, and that's due in large part because of the vision and leadership that this board, the borough's council, and the borough's professionals have demonstrated time and time again. Tonight's presentation is a little bit unusual. Typically, conceptual plans are shown to the board after an area has already been designated as an area in need of redevelopment, and a lot of times after a redevelopment plan has already been established for the site. However, we are here prior to the start of the redevelopment process because we wanted to engage with you early on, and we're here humbly to listen to you and get feedback before moving forward with this project. So as you know, the existing Granites building has stood as a part of Somerville's fabric for many, many years. I think it's important that this board know that when we first approached the project, the hope was to keep this piece of history intact. But after extensive environmental and structural studies, which we will detail tonight, it became clear that preserving the Granites building was not feasible. And this wasn't easy to accept, as it would have been far simpler to move forward with a building renovation, but we had to reconsider our approach. So what you see in the design packet before you is our effort to pay homage to the Granites building. We drew inspiration from the building's distinctive features, including its tower design feature. But of course, we've developed a design that complements and enhances the existing streetscape. So although this building will be different from the Granites building, it's our belief that it still will embody the spirit of Somerville. This site, as everyone knows, is a gateway to downtown Somerville for people coming in from the west. We know that, and we take that responsibility seriously. So we're very proud of the renderings before you this evening, as they represent our commitment to creating something distinctive. And what I'll say is that instead of simply adding another apartment building to Somerville, we wanted to create something and show you something else to help fill a void in the borough that we've recognized. So the conceptual design presented tonight features 4 sale condominium units, reflecting our belief that Somerville needs more than just rental apartment units. It deserves homes where people can invest, own, and really become a part of the Somerville community. So our goal with this proposal is to offer a product that is unlike anything else in the area. Spacious, beautifully designed condominiums with top-tier amenities, but this is very important. We also know the importance of inclusionary housing, and this project and the applicant is committed to providing a percentage of affordable units to help meet the borough's 4th round obligation. So this project strikes a unique balance by offering luxury for sale condominium units alongside affordable housing. I think that's a creative blend of luxury and inclusivity. The board is, and the public for that matter, are likely all too familiar with developers who try to really come in there and maximize density by squeezing in as many units as they can onto a site. But you'll look at the concept plan and the renderings, and it's quite evident that that wasn't our goal here, as Mr. Taylor will elaborate with his presentation. Our focus has been really on creating exceptionally large and high-quality units with generous amenity space, rather than squeezing in as many units as possible. And just speaking briefly to the amenity space, we also considered ways in which we could really offer an opportunity for the Somerville community to take advantage of this project if it were to one day become a reality. And one possibility we explored, which was very warmly received by the borough's RDC, was the prospect of creating a rooftop restaurant on the top floor of the building. This would offer residents and the public a chance to enjoy what will arguably be some of the best views of Somerville. So just to conclude, we are presenting what I refer to as a new chapter for a site that deserves to be reimagined in a way that reflects Somerville's past, but also looks to Somerville's future. And I thank the board for indulging me with my opening remarks. I would like to introduce to the board the managing member of the applicant and contract purchaser, Mr. Brian Silbert. He's an experienced developer and is responsible for one of the first major redevelopment projects just down the road in the borough of Raritan that in many ways at this early stage is similar to the proposal at hand tonight. And with that,
You know, Mike, just a concept, if we could just swear them in too, just so.
okay,
everyone knows.
absolutely.
You've done that. You both swear the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Take it away.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of a solemn night on 9/11, as we all feel. I'm appreciative of being invited in and having the opportunity to present our vision for the property as my son Michael described, the gateway as you come into your community from the west into the downtown. We've been involved in a lot of interesting developments over a period of, I'm in the field many years now, close to 45 years. And as Michael indicated, there's a lot of parallel between the Granite's property and the what I developed in the borough some years back. We finished it in 2007, right before the fiscal crisis. And my vision there was to take that building, which is of a similar age as this building. The Granite's building was built and constructed in 1885. It's not a historic building, but it has a lot of meaning to people as it does to me. I've shopped and patronized Somerville for many, many years. I live in Somerset County. And it's been a manufacturing building over the years. Woolen mills, various different manufacturing had been in there, and then in the 50s became a furniture store. So by way of background, and it's been vacant approximately 2 years. There are no tenants in there. So when I look at a project, and I have done a variety of development over the years, which I'm very proud of in Jersey and outside of Jersey, I look at what's the highest and best need with what I have some expertise in and what I feel I can accomplish. And I looked at this building, and as Michael said in this property, is from my vision, I wanted to do for sale housing. I believe you have some great apartment projects that are here. You have some terrific retail and cafe and this and that, all the above I've done. I don't feel that you need that for this site. What I feel would be a tremendous catalyst for the community is to build luxury condominiums. There's a difference between condominiums and luxury condominiums, which I'll touch upon in a few minutes. But to embark on the project, the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure you understand the mousetrap. You understand what's there. You understand what you can do, what you can't do. Again, as Michael said, our vision was to take the building and try to work within the building. As I started to get into the project, have structural engineers in there, environmental engineers. I've been working on the project for many months now. In short, the building can't be used. The beams are rotted. The foundation has mold, moisture, rotting from the inside. The building is timber, it's not steel. The floors are completely unlevel, and it's a safety factor. And I wanted to do what I could to still try to work within it. It can't be done. Can't be done. In addition to the structural element, the building is laden with asbestos, top down, and lead paint. So this is what I was embarking on. The property is owned by a gentleman that doesn't live in the United States. He and his family, and they bought this property. I'm not quite sure honestly what their vision was with it, but the last tenant, as I said earlier, moved out. So to me, although the property's a fixture in the borough, the property is blighted, it's contaminated. Very similar to the woolen mills that was in Raritan Borough. We had come in initially with a plan to renovate that building. We wound up building, at the time, a luxury building, which became a success and benefited the businesses there, the business owners, the restaurants, patrons and alike, and served a niche. We'd like to be able to do that here. We went through an immense amount of work environmentally. Phase 1, Phase 2, soils tests. There's groundwater issues, there's soil issues. An environmental company I've worked with for many years on other complicated projects I brought in with this. So we reached a point where we then said, okay, we want to create something we think that can be spectacular, a notch above, with all due respect to your other developers here, and go ahead and see if the borough would have interest in the project. I'm prepared to commit my time and resources beyond this evening to move it forward. And we believe that over time, we can make this a tremendous success. I've had the pleasure to work with Brian Taylor and his colleague Rocco Campanella, who's here, and we have spent many, many hours with our preliminary work and design. Because there's nothing like that here, I'm not competing against some of the other apartment buildings, nor for that matter, people that are building townhomes and other things. This is a different product. This is one building, as you'll hear from my architect, where we're catering to a niche buyer. It's not a big project in terms of numbers of units from my view, but it's not an easy project to do. The other thing that we wanted to be mindful of, as with any downtown, is your parking needs. The parking will be self-contained. I've also developed a number of projects with affordable housing that I own and operate. So we understand this would have an affordable housing component, as touched upon earlier. And we feel excited to bring this vision to your community and be a part of it. As a local resident, as a businessman. The other component that I find interesting is we wanted to really have something for the community by way of the potential for rooftop dining. And I say potential because things have to be thought out carefully, analyzed, market-driven. I have interest in the hospitality industry, so it's not an area of business that I'm uncomfortable with. It's a matter of finding the right niche with that. But we think we can do something that'll be really not only tremendous for these residents, but for also the people in the town, and put dollars back in your economy. And in my experience and what I've seen with redevelopment, of which we've been a party to quite a bit of it, is that these towns need the residential today to drive the business that's there. Small business and larger companies there, because they're all vying for the same dollars. So that the buyer we're going to cater to, based upon our work and our research, would have that disposable income here. So that's my overview, if you will, on the project. We're based not far here. My headquarters is based in Warren Township, and we're very active in the area throughout New Jersey and outside of Jersey. Thank you.
And I'll just, Brian Taylor is going to walk you guys through the concept plan and renderings, and we'd love to hear feedback whenever you feel the need to say something or share a point. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Great. Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us to present this concept tonight. As it was stated, we did meet several times with the redevelopment committee to show the ideas that we had, and we had some great feedback that we incorporated into the concept that we're going to show you. So we can just get started. There we go. Okay.
Are you showing it on the screen right now?
Yep, I see it on my screen.
Yeah.
Drag it over. Oh, it's a double screen.
There you
Ah,
go.
I got you. Okay.
All right, so you might have to look at the big screen in
There you
front
go,
of you.
that's fine, I can. Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
All right. We could actually do this too.
Pardon me.
Where's it say full screen? Great, okay. So this is drawing CF000. This is the existing view of the Granites building. So this is a view looking toward downtown from West End Avenue or Route 28. The existing building is a vacant four-story building with a partial basement, otherwise known as the Granites building. Our project proposes to remove this building due to its environmental issues, as was relayed by Mr. Silbert. There are structural issues, architectural issues. I've been in the building. None of the floors are level, so it really does make it undevelopable, I believe, in its existing form.
Mr. Taylor, can you just speak closely to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I get it. So again, this is just the building as it exists today. You can see the size of the building, and it is, you know, certainly a building that is a focal point, and it's one of the first buildings that you see when you come into downtown. So one of the first things that we did is we started to look at some inspiration images. So before embarking upon any kind of design proposal, we searched some imagery which we believe would be appropriate for a new building to replace the Granites building, and did our best to create a structure deserving of a designation of landmark. We do understand and fully appreciate the significance of the existing building and its location. The building certainly is a focal point at the end of West End Avenue and serves as a gateway into the downtown Somerville area. So the imagery that you see before you on the left-hand side is a tower. I believe it's a building from Virginia. And we looked at this for the tower element, the tall, slender windows, the columns, the materials, and then the building on the right-hand side is actually the Apple Theater, not looking pretty much so much at the building in the middle, but to the right, the facade. Looked at that as sort of a blueprint for the fenestration, the pattern, the rhythm of the windows. It is a classical looking building, but it actually looks a bit abstract in this photo. So these were just some images that we looked at to draw inspiration. You know, they are more traditionally designed buildings. And so materiality is also, you know, something that's very important. So we wanted to use a material such as stone or masonry. We thought that was important to have good quality materials. So now moving to the next image, this shows the actual massing. But before we get into the program and function of the building, we think it's important to start with the vision of how this building would fit within the context of the streetscape. This view illustrates the massing concept of what would be the new structure. The perspective is taken from the same vantage point as the previous existing building slide. While this is not a finalized design, it's an attempt to visualize what this project could accomplish. First and foremost, the original massing and basic proportion of the existing Granites building can somewhat be preserved. Although this building concept is a larger building, the proportions are preserved in a few ways. Number one, there's a vertical break that splits the facade into two parts at the junction of the bend in the road, thus highlighting or isolating the original massing and footprint of the existing building. So if we look at the right-hand side of that image where the tower is, the left-hand side, between the left-hand side and the right-hand side, there is a recess or a vertical break. This makes the right-hand side of the building almost secondary, so that there's an intentional hierarchy and emphasis on the original massing. The tower centered on the massing on the left harkens back to the Granites tower, and it conspicuously marks the entrance to the downtown. We felt it was important to preserve this building feature and even enhance it with a clock tower. In addition to that, the building has a clear distinction between the base, the middle, and the top through the use of different colors and materials and horizontal datum lines or banding that you can see at the second level and then up at the top of the building, the white trim. Additionally, the massing perspective illustrates how the building's setbacks or stepbacks regulate the mass of the building. There's a small step back on the third floor, right at that first band up from grade. And then there's a larger more significant step back at the seventh floor. And then there's a penthouse level, which is stepped back even further where it becomes almost unnoticeable. This is a 7-story building with a smaller penthouse level, but as you can see, the manipulation of the massing allows this building to visually match the height of the edge building, which is just across South Doherty Avenue. So if you look at that image, you can see the edge building, the top of that building, which is a 5-story building, and basically aligns with the more prominent edge of the top of the 6th floor. Borrowing from the previous inspiration imagery, the proportions of the fenestration, solid and void of the facade, and the verticality and detail of the tower allow the building to take shape and present itself to the streetscape. And if there's any questions as I'm going, please just don't hesitate to ask. So this next slide is in keeping with the idea of this building being a focal point or a gateway building. We thought of introducing something playful that could celebrate the downtown streetscape. Similar to the landmark buildings that we all know, like the Empire State Building, it could be a fun way to mark certain holidays or downtown events by bathing the tower in color at night. These two images present some possibilities for this idea. This would certainly enhance the idea of the tower and the building as a gateway concept. These are two additional views that are essentially continuing with the same concept. These are dusk views, and this is across the street, across the intersection on the opposite side of Main Street at the corner of South Doughty and West Main. These are perspective massing views. These are aerial views, and they give a better sense of the overall form of the building by highlighting both the upper and lower rooftop amenities. It also illustrates the 7th floor step back that could possibly also serve as private balconies for some of the residential units. So looking at the left image on the left, you can see the 7th floor stepping back, and it's probably about 10 feet. And that's what allows the building massing to be reduced as it goes up. And then the very top on the left-hand image, you can see that white area is an outdoor rooftop amenity. Behind that are some of the amenity spaces for the building, which we'll see when we look at the floor plans. On the right-hand side, which is the back of the building looking towards West Main from Veterans Memorial, we can see that the building is essentially a U-shape. And on the second floor, you'll see another roof deck area, and that would just be an outdoor roof deck area, access from the second floor for residents to enjoy. Yes?
The 7th floor, those are intended to be outside patio spaces, like are gonna be fencing along the top to
That's
where
correct.
those apartments?
Yep.
So that would have to be included in drawings going forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, correct.
But these will be like sliders on some of the apartments.
Yeah, so there's the setback of the 7th floor, which is the smaller balcony that goes around the perimeter. That would certainly be detailed, and yet it would have access from the apartments inside. And then up above, where we're showing amenity space right now, that would have access to that larger rooftop area, which would be outdoor amenity deck space.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So this next slide really just shows some of the project data of the building, and I'll just briefly go through some of it. What you see on the drawing is the existing survey, and you can see the footprint of the Granite's building. There's the main part of the building which fronts West Main Street, and then there's some lower portions of that building as it curves around towards Somerset Street, and then all the way to the left on the corner of Somerset and New Street, there's an existing parking lot. This building right now, at this early conceptual stage, we're totaling 77 dwelling units. They're a combination of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. The building to the very top of the penthouse level, which is above the 7th floor, would be about almost 94 feet. And again, it would be 7 stories plus the penthouse for a total of 8. The intent is for this property to be incorporated into the West Main Street redevelopment plan. That has not happened yet. So we would work with those bulk requirements moving forward. For parking, which, why don't I go to the next slide? Oh, before we get there, the next slide is a parking lot that is part of this project. And this is a parking lot that is at the corner of New Street and Veterans Memorial Drive, so it's just right down the block from New Street. It's an existing parking lot. It's in disrepair, it's damaged. There is, I believe, an existing underground oil tank. So we propose to refurbish this lot, repave it, add some lighting, and we intend to get 18 parking spaces that would contribute to the required parking of the new project. This is the basement. So again, this new building would have a full basement. There will be parking in the basement level, and as you'll see up on the grade level. So there's a ramp. If you see the bottom of the plan, there's a peach-colored rectangle. That's a ramp that goes up to the first level. So the parking in the basement would have some utility space, obviously stairs and elevator for circulation. There will be surface spots. There will be we're proposing some tandem spots, which generally work okay with two-bedroom units. And then we also are proposing some mechanical parking to help us get the most parking that we can out of the available space. The next slide is the grade level space. And so you would enter the property off of New Street. There's a shared drive aisle at the very bottom of the plan. You would come in off of New Street and directly make a left into the parking deck, which would be at grade level. You can then go down the ramp to get to the basement, which we just looked at. And then along West Main Street, we would have an entrance, the main entrance to the building. There would be a lobby, there would be a lounge, some conference room space, and some amenity space, as well as elevator and stairs. We would also, toward the bottom right-hand side of the plan, have an additional elevator that would be for move-in, and then we would also have the trash room there. So we would utilize that existing shared drive aisle to facilitate move-in as well as trash removal. So moving up, this would be the second floor plan. And we have the units in various colors here based upon the type of unit it is. What you can see on the bottom of the plan, and again in a peach color, is that second floor roof amenity deck, which would be accessible from the corridor system. So just moving on up. These are typical levels as we go up. This is levels 3 through 6. And again, now you can clearly see the U shape of the building with the second floor amenity deck below with the X through it. Just a corridor system. We have stairs, we have the elevators, and these are where we would have all the units. Some of the units would overlook the outside perimeter of the building, and some would look down over into the amenity deck. The other thing we just want to bring up too about these units, which Mr. Silbert did point out, is these are going to be condominiums. These are going to be for sale units. So they're quite large, and they're intended to be large, spacious, and luxurious. This is level 7. This is the level where we have a rather large step back. So you can see from the previous plan, the footprint shrinks. And so around the perimeter, around New Street, Somerset Street, Main Street, and South Doughty, we have this outdoor area that would be accessible by the units on this floor, and they would be private. And then up at the rooftop level, which would be what we're calling the penthouse level, you can see in the very, very top, there's the footprint, that square, tan square is the tower. Then the orange-colored area is the outdoor roof area that can be enjoyed by occupants. And then we have a fitness center, a lounge, and a business center. But this is also where we could incorporate a restaurant. So Mr. Silbert talked about the idea of having a restaurant. We discussed that during some of our meetings with the redevelopment committee. Everybody seemed to like that idea, so we can definitely incorporate a restaurant space in this plan. And with the height of this building, we think that the views would be spectacular looking into the downtown area. And if it is a restaurant, it would be open to the public. So people of the public could come and enjoy what this building has to offer. So that's basically sums up our concept. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Do we have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. All right.
One question I had was about the parking, tandem parking. And I understand now the mechanical parking, you're talking about like a lift.
Right.
Would those spots be dedicated to a particular apartment? You can't have apartment 1
Correct.
sharing with, that won't work. So it would be tandem slot 1, was tandem parking 1 would be an apartment. They have to work it out.
Yes, that's the intent. And again, the parking, and again, just understand this is very early, it's conceptual. We know that we have some means of satisfying the parking in terms of there's different types of mechanical systems we can use. And again, just the basic shape and orientation of the lot, it just happened that tandem parking could work and it could be efficient. But yes, to your point, tandem parking only really works if it's, it can't work with a one-bedroom. So if we use tandem parking, it would be dedicated to a two-bedroom where, they would negotiate moving cars.
Okay. And I noticed on the amenities floor, the 7th floor, you're only using the tower side of the roof. Is there an intent to expand to the other side, the side that's over New Street?
Right.
Just curious, is the building gonna be built that way, to expand that way?
I mean,
or-
it's a possibility if we do incorporate a restaurant, may grow that area. I mean, I think the intent was we were conscious of the fact that, height was something that was gonna be important. And that's why we made the efforts to step the building back as it goes up. And when you see the image of the massing in context, you can see how it really reduces the overall massing of the building. So we're conscious of that and purposely made that penthouse level as big as it needed to be. But, moving forward as we, discuss and continue with the design, maybe the incorporation of a restaurant maybe expands that area a bit, but I think we can certainly do that in a way where we keep it back from the street so that it's not noticeable from street level.
And rooftop mechanicals all up there, all the air
Yeah, we
conditioning?
would work out the rooftop mechanicals, and we haven't really delved into that much yet, but yeah, there's ways that we could put them on the roof, either on the side of the roof that we're not using or on top of the penthouse, and we would screen it. But we would work that out so it would look appropriate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I might be not visualizing it the right way, but the additional 18 parking spaces that you have, that I'm looking at on CF 007, that's New Street and Veterans Memorial Drive.
Right.
I believe there's some two-family houses right adjacent to that parking lot.
Yes.
So what would, and I'm pretty sure that if those people have cars, they are currently parking there, what would happen to them if you're taking the spaces for?
Ma'am, if I may, Brian.
Sure.
Thank you for your question. I don't own the dwellings adjacent. The lot is currently a private lot. People just park there because they park there. But as the property is redeveloped and redone, it would be parking for the building here. But I think people just park there randomly to park there today. So they would not park there. Pardon?
It's convenience parking right now
Yeah.
for the people in the area.
Yeah, it's not monitored, so I manage properties, I operate them, I make sure they run efficiently, they're secure, and they're being used by the people that are supposed to use them. So, right now, as the mayor said, it's really convenience, people are just parking there, because the spaces are there.
Well, I understand that, I'm just thinking that the people that are parking there are the people that live next to it, which means they're gonna not have a place to park.
No, they can park in front of their home.
Yeah.
There's parking on the street, on New Street. I used to live on New Street.
They're not supposed to be parking there, right?
Yeah.
But
In
some
fact,
have little
20
driveways.
25, 30 years ago, I used to park in that lot, because I lived in the warehouse apartments.
So you know where it is. Okay.
I know exactly where it is.
So, was that all you had? I had a couple quick questions, comments, I guess, more. I like the tiered back from the main street. It does have that massing. But to New Street's point, it looks like the view from New Street will be a 7-story plus the amenities right up to the edge of the building.
Well, it is set back also. The 7th floor is also set back on New Street. It's set back on New Street, West Main, and South Doughty.
Right at the edge there, yeah, but not the back end of it, correct?
The back end, no.
So the houses on New Street that are, I'm just looking at Google Maps here, so
Right.
I'm pointing at a screen you can't see.
I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, so that would be large. Another couple quick comments. I like the fact that you have the additional parking lot that's not under the building. I don't know if there's EV requirements and stuff like that.
There will be.
But I would highly, highly prefer if they're in the outside areas rather than underneath a building where you can't fight a fire and
I'm aware of the
can't
concern.
put it out
Yeah.
and let it burn. And then with that as well, access for emergency services to get, it looks like it's a very tight turn to get into that parking deck and get down that ramp. So if that could be kept in mind, I'm sure Roger will be watching that as well, so.
Yeah, certainly. And again, you know, as I said, we're kind of early in the
Yeah,
process.
correct, and
We're-
that's
we're
why
here
I don't want to
just-
get into the weeds,
Right.
just something to think about
But
going forward. is-
Certainly. I understand when we put something out there, you're going to look at it and make comments, and I certainly understand that.
You know, if I may half a second, it's also, you know, when you look at this property, it's the original stormwater, it's the original detention. When I redevelop this property, this will be redeveloped based upon the current DEP standards and that within your ordinance in terms of all the stormwater management, which is very important in terms of taking an old, especially an old property. So, that benefit should not go unnoticed. So all that will be brought current up to standards.
The other thing I also forgot to mention was that because of the height and the number of stories of this building, it cannot be built out of wood. So as a consequence, most likely the basement and the first floor will be reinforced concrete, and then the superstructure will be cold form steel. So it's going to be a very well-built building, and it's going to have much higher fire resistance as a type 1 construction building.
We did this construction, Brian, over in Raritan. This is as good as it gets when you build that type of a structure there. So this is truly a luxury building in terms of the ability to walk around, what you don't hear as compared to what you would hear, and certain safety measures that are taken. So again, the concrete and steel and beams and structural throughout, it's a very expensive building to build.
Where's the other building? That other
I'm
building
sorry?
is where?
I developed a property in the borough of Raritan. If you go off of 206, down Orlando Drive, directly behind what was the Stop and Shop, going back, the building there, I called it River Park at Raritan. And it was 224 units, also with the structured parking there. Those were luxury apartments. Nothing like that was being built there at the time. And there was a demand for it, as we see years later with the demand. But again, I look at a number of communities around, and they're missing homes for people to buy. Whether they're people that are what we call empty nesters. Somebody said to me, well, who are you looking to buy it here? Well, you're going to you're going to sell to people, I'm sorry, that want to live in this environment, want to be the benefactor of the services and everything that's in your community. We want to be mindful of not competing against other commercial and other, you don't need another coffee shop there. You don't need certain types of retail. And we really thought there was a great niche to do luxury condominiums. But you have to have a certain finishing, a certain quality of building, certain level of amenity. So when you ask sir about the top floor and the penthouse, that's a work in progress. I have a lot of different ideas that are going to be explored and implemented and if we can move forward here.
So I had a question and a comment. I think you kind of answered my question in your thought process here, which I appreciate. And I realize that the first floor of the building is parking for obvious reasons, right? But one of the things I was thinking through here as you're walking down Main Street, this is a kind of a transition zone. And right now, it's a kind of a wall of either blanked-in windows or a handful of windows. And you'd mentioned this might not be the place for coffee shops or shops or something like that. But it is a transition, so is it better to walk down? I was thinking, is it better to walk down Main Street and hit a transition of kind of wall windows and a lobby and kind of a vacant wall? Or is it better to walk down Main Street and transition with stores and shops into the next area? So just from a comment perspective, looking at the facade here, I think I would have liked to see that, but I understand the reasons why you're not doing that. Any thought beyond your comment around maybe doesn't need coffee shops there?
Well, I'm being generic when I say coffee shop. I
Yes.
think
I get it.
I'm very knowledgeable, or like to think I am. There's a difference. I like to think I know a little bit about the retail industry. And the developer that's building next door and doing retail, and then the next building, and then you have a lot of, respectfully, I think in terms of demand, you have a lot of retail from when you come in across the street from me all the way down. Your tenants, your shopkeepers, both big and small, they're striving to get that consumer dollar. And respectfully, again, I don't believe you need more of the same competition there. That being said, doing something very different with potentially a rooftop dining concept, that's a tremendous amenity. That's not what's in town there. But I think you have a lot of owners of these businesses that are struggling. Not all. So I don't think as you come in, again, I call it the gateway, and I look in, I don't think from a planning standpoint and a demand standpoint, to stick some retail in front there is the right fit. What we're gonna do, and it's a work in progress, is continue to try to make that view as you come in and that image attractive and really, really knock the socks off people. But I don't think you need to see a sign, Sally's Beauty Shop, or Starbucks too, or so-and-so pizzeria. I don't view that, and I looked at it very hard that way. I also personally, I'll say I don't view it as putting a medical use in there. That's not what should go there. I think sometimes the things are very obvious to us, and we look and say, well, what else can you do? It's very simple. You do a very high-end luxury building there that's successful and would make the borough proud, and I think all of the other businesses there would be very happy to have people.
Yeah, I think to Chris's point, it's more of the aesthetics, not saying it has to be a business, but the aesthetics of having at eye height for anybody walking down, making sure it's an attractive eye level, not just, the stucco or
And
whatever else.
I agree,
I
yeah.
think you hit on what I was looking for, the attractiveness of, you're sitting at that light here, first stop in the Somerville, you're looking at this blank wall. On the drawing, I know you have a long way to go between now and then, but I think that was my point, and you did hit on it, so thank you.
What about just incorporating more glass?
Well, there's ways to beautify, and so we're relatively early on in what we've done. I think Brian and Rocco, his partner, have done a number of iterations here, but we also have looked at a number of successful projects in great downtowns, both in New Jersey and outside of Jersey, and you also don't want to have, I'll use the technical term of a hodgepodge, versus it being sleek and really cutting edge and what makes it beautiful. And we're trying to make our focal point in large part with some of the trim and the details, the clock tower, and bringing it all together. But we're certainly open to and are looking at certain refinements which are done through hardscape, plantings. I'm a big proponent of greenery in properties and flowers, and I think that's so important, and I have a portfolio that you see that evident here. So we don't want it to be a sterile look by any stretch. We want it to wow people coming in, and we want it to be very mindful of the aesthetics of the elevations there, all around the building, not just the front.
And I would just say, being that we're pursuing this by way of redevelopment, I would assure you that the borough's professionals would mandate that the redevelopment plan, if this would come to fruition, would mandate that the ground floor would be aesthetically pleasing and assist with the transition to those businesses further down on Main Street. So the option wouldn't really be up to us. We would have to, it would be imposed that we would have to create something that the borough would be proud of in terms of creating visually aesthetically, a good visual aesthetic for that ground floor parking area. So
Yeah, if anybody's has been down to Princeton, Michael, they have a parking deck that looks like townhouses. You don't even know it's a parking deck. The facade is a facade, but they show, it looks like a townhouses. Besides for the gate you see to get in there, but you have no idea it's a parking deck. So I think that's what Chris and Jason's getting at, to make it look like it's not a parking deck. I mean, that's what we're basically saying, right?
I think also, I mean, and again, you know, certainly we're welcoming all of your feedback and taking all of this in. The effort here in this concept was to try and do that, is to just not have a solid wall.
Right.
So we do have fenestration there, and at the very bottom, yes, that's where the parking deck is. I think the option of putting glazing in there would do just that. It would make it look like it's a, you know, building, and perhaps there's retail or an office or something else inside. But I think, you know, we'll certainly take that into account as we move forward.
So I guess comments and questions kind of intertwined. What I didn't realize was that it was a wooden structure inside. We've had some discussions about this, and for clarity, when I first met with Mr. Silbert in the redevelopment committee, I said, you're going to save the building. It's not something that we would like to see. It's an iconic landmark. And over the course of a couple of months after his reviews, and came back and talked about the asbestos and the mold and the lead paint, and now realizing that it's a wooden structure, it is a problem. Something that large. I can tell you, and Mike, you may remember this, probably about 7 years ago, bricks were beginning to fall off of the parapet up top. So it is a problem. The idea that it's a gateway anchor to the western end, it has been since 1880. And the design that you've created, I think, extends that, which I like. It's also high and dry, which I also like. It's for sale units. You had mentioned that it's something very different for Somerville, and I think that is. Years ago, we had condominiums built, but we're going back probably 40 years where we had condominiums built. And I really like the idea that it is for sale housing. And I think a lot of folks will like that as well. The massing, I think, works very well. When you look at the massing of this versus the massing of the existing building, they're pretty much aligned. They have that same feel, which I think is good. The window grates around the parking, we've talked about that. It needs something. It needs some work there. You know, to Chris's point, there's got to be some visual finesse to that. So I think that's something that can be worked on. And these are the pickies. This is the pickies. You always got to have picky stuff. That's what boards do. We do the picky stuff. Where the building turns on the angle, you have that blank area. It's that tan inset area.
Correct.
It's blank.
Could be glass.
It could be glass, it could be art,
Yeah,
it could be something.
correct.
You know, as you come around, I know you don't want to take away too much from the clock tower, because that's really an iconic point. But something could go in there. What? I couldn't tell you, but art to me just jumps to mind. Not weird art. Nice art. Cool art.
Your weird could be different than my weird.
Well, exactly. That's the point. The fenestration and the coloring, I mean, I like it, but it's a bit neutral overall. I don't see a lot of contrast in there, and I don't know if that's by design.
It's, I mean, really, the colors, you know,
It's conceptual.
The neutral, yeah, the neutral colors were on purpose. We didn't want to do something overpowering.
Yeah.
And really, when I design a building, when I first do the building, I don't really think about materials. I think about a building facade as a composition, like a painting. And it's the geometry which is important. You could go and put whatever materials you
Right.
wanted on there, but certainly, yeah, I mean, the color and the detail and the contrast, we tried to give some indication of that there as to what pops, you know, the tower, the datum lines. But certainly this is something that we'll continue to work on, and it will only improve over time.
And then the fenestration in terms of the window treatments, and we talked about this in
That-
one of our earlier meetings,
Yeah.
that, because up to that point, it was blank.
Right.
And I said, take a look at the old building and the fenestrations around the window,
Mm-hmm.
which really are, they're prominent, and they're, I guess the word's prominent. I see they're in here, but I think there still needs to be just a little, and maybe that comes through with that contrast, I'm not
Right.
sure. That's just, I'm looking at it more from a visual standpoint as you come down, heading into Main Street, and it's, I think it's beautiful. But just those little touches, those little touches. Touched on very briefly was EV charging. We already have a history at this board in the last couple of months, both at a concept review and at a site plan review, of pushing the EV charging away from the buildings. We're very concerned about that. The fire department's very concerned about it. And I'm sure you're very concerned about it too, that, you just look at some of these videos, you can't get these cars out. They will not go out. And it could potentially lead to a catastrophe. So it's something that I think this board is very keen on, the safety aspect of EV charging. I also am very happy to hear that inclusionary housing was brought up right at the outset of this discussion. It's obviously something, regardless of your position on it, it's something that the state of New Jersey has mandated. There's some challenges going on all of a sudden as of yesterday, but it's what we have, and there is a housing crunch. We all know that. So the concept that you bring it to us as opposed to us going to you and saying, we have to have this discussion, I think I look at that very favorably, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And then lastly, I say this to those that come before this board, because I truly mean it, thank you. Thank you for having the vision of investing in Somerville. And I think that's something I try to remind a lot of folks, that, whether you're putting a deck on, whether you're putting an addition on your house, or whether you have an investor who's coming in to spend tens of millions of dollars, everyone deserves that same respect when they come to this board and to the Borough Council and to the zoning board. They're looking to invest in their property to help make our town better. And I appreciate that. And I know this board appreciates that. And that's something that, we'll go through trials and tribulations. And that's part of the reason of bringing this to this board early. We've had our discussions. You put together a plan. I said, bring it to the board. Let's take it out from the closed discussions, and let's bring it forward and allow everybody here at this table to have a look at it, to have a response to it, so you have an indication of where the heads are up here. And I think that's important as you invest in our town. And again, whether it's a deck, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's an addition, or whether it's a major development, everybody deserves that same respect. So I appreciate it very much, so thank you.
Thank you for the comments and the review.
All right, so I'm going to make some comments.
Yes.
So first, I want to reiterate what the mayor had said. Thank you. But I'm going to say thank you for, I kept looking at these drawings as I was preparing for the meeting, and I have it in front of me with the old one and the new. And I think that you did an amazing job of trying to keep what is already there in an updated look, and something that will preserve and go on forever. Well, nothing's forever, but much longer that it won't be in wood, actually. But it amazed me. I kept looking at it back and forth, and I'm still staring at it back and forth. And you can tell you put a lot of time into trying to preserve what is something that is already there, and not make it this monstrosity that, can sometimes add doubt to a project. I personally love the rooftop bar and restaurant idea open to the public. I think it's something, and, not only do we not have for sale condos here, we don't have that here, and I know that that has been a want for many residents. So those kind of touches that you thought about of a way to also include the public, even though you're not gonna have retail on the bottom, I think is another amazing idea, to have it as an all-inclusive type building that is welcome to everybody in Somerville, whether you're buying a piece of that property or you're gonna go visit it and enjoy the view, I think is an added touch that is needed in Somerville. So for that, I say thank you. I'm not gonna reiterate everything everybody else said, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew, at least from my perspective, it is very apparent that you took a lot of time to try to really keep this and preserve what is already there for us, so thank you.
Thank you.
So I had one other comment, and really it's actually, if you can comment on it. So that building was, I'll call it small office suites. When I lived in the warehouse apartments, which was right behind Mr. Granite's owned the warehouse apartments, and I used to have to walk up to about the 4th floor to pay my rent every month. But it was all small offices, a couple of larger ones. Some of the questions the public will say, well, why can't you just make it offices so we don't have this influx? Can you talk a little bit about the office market and what's going on with office space, especially in New Jersey right now?
Mayor, I'm happy to. But again, the building, just for the record, it's all original wood timbers, wood trusses, back to 1885, I'm sorry. The office market. The office market, for many reasons, is more and more challenging. I own and manage office product, medical, industrial. Simply stated, companies have changed their modus operandi. We all know people work from home. You have not the need for the in-person meetings the way we used to have. And Jersey was the capital with all these major office buildings all over. So the problem you have is it's simple economics. You have this tremendous supply of office buildings, whether you're in the downtowns or you're in the suburbs, and you don't have the demand. And without getting too much into the weeds, as the expression goes, it's just supply and demand economics. So this building, again, structurally, you can't do that. I went in it, I can't tell you how many times, said there must be a way to do, and I get, no, there isn't a way. And then when you go down to the basement and you see the issues, forget the environmental, just the structural integrity of the property, it's a liability. I don't know how you'd put people in there. But there's not a demand for office space. I make office leases, I'm sad to say, at less than I used to get 10, 15 years ago in rent. And we all know the costs are a little higher than they were 10, 15 years ago. So it doesn't work. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. To get into vacancy factors and things and statistics, I understand, Mayor, not looking at that. But I'm pretty well versed in the office market in New Jersey. There are buildings you could buy that cost $250 a square foot to build that I'm offered to pay $100 a foot. Not with land, building finished, might have been built 15, 20 years ago for $100. You couldn't rebuild the building today for under $200 a foot, having nothing to do with the site work, the soft costs, or any of that. So it's a big problem, and that's why you see in some of the real urban areas, I'm talking to somebody in the city I know who's a developer, they're converting a large office building into residential. But the bones are good, okay? They're taking a building built late 70s, but you're gonna see more and more of that going on because how do you, quote, repurpose a property? I did that up in East Rutherford a few years ago. We took a property and we repurposed it. So it's also a wave of the future, I think, because otherwise these buildings become pink elephants, and then you get the tax appeals and all the things, and You don't want that in a beautiful town, and what you have, having a property sitting there with all of the other issues going on with it, not the least of which is the environmental cleanup. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just one question to Brian. Brian, the decks, the parking garages are typically not for visitors. Is your vision that the visitors will park on the surface parking lot off of New Street?
It's a good question. I mean, I think sometimes when the parking requirements or parking ratios that are developed by the town usually account for that somehow. But, you know, that could be an option to use the New Street for visitors.
It's important to me also, Planner Cole, that aside from what your ordinance reads, I have to make sure that when somebody's coming in to buy a luxury unit, they feel comfortable that they're gonna have adequate parking. And when they have a guests over for dinner or whatever, a family, they can park. So we felt having the 18 spaces is critically important. First of all, for me, when I build the job, it's a staging area, because I'm there, you don't have a lot of room to stage, which is really great. But long-term importance to have those surface spaces, I think, is vitally important. And from my experience with other projects, they would be more for guest-type parking, basically.
I would add to that, Mike, right across the street, we have public parking in the deck, in the public-private deck. And Veterans Memorial, we also have a significant amount of unused parking for visitors, yeah.
Anyone else on the board?
You had mentioned that, excuse me, that you want to incorporate more greenery, things of that nature. You have 90% impervious coverage, but you'll work on putting trees in, shrubs, greenery on wherever you can.
Yeah, wherever feasible, but also when I say greenery, we haven't touched upon the front of the building and the sides where we will put flowers, and I'm a big proponent of that. I love nature, I love flowers, I love all that greenery. So you will see that on the plans as we progress with this moving forward, for certain.
Is the sidewalk deep enough there
Yes,
for plantings?
yes,
Sidewalk.
I had a 4-hour meeting with my construction team a few weeks ago about talking about things like that and what I want to see, and I feel very comfortable that we can achieve that within reason. We're not creating a forest, but we can create greenery and landscape. Again, I want it to pop. I want people, aside from the standards that you have, I have my own standards, and I want the residents that come in that look at the building from the outside and say, wow, I want to live here. That's what's important. So that's what I say with the parking. It's aside from the ordinance. I have to make sure that people are comfortable and have enough parking. Too many of these developments built in different areas, urban areas, don't have enough parking. And that's why it was very important to me. I do my best with 2 stories with the parking, the basement and then the first floor. And as you probably know, it's not inexpensive to do that. So we're going to take that on if we move forward.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up to the public for comments. Anybody from the public? Yep.
Yeah, Rich O'Neill, 124 West Cliff Street. I'm very glad to hear about this project. Originally, I heard or understood that it was going to be restoring or rehabbing that building. I've been in that thing many times through the fire department, and it's a dump. There's no other way to describe it. And you can't play marbles in there, they all go to one corner. You know, it's a pile of wood looking to become a pile of bricks. The sooner it goes away, gets made into something else, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? All right, we'll close public. We have anything else to do for? All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. Good luck with everything.
Thank you for
We
your time this
appreciate the
evening.
feedback. It's very helpful for us to get direction, especially early on. It's great for us, so we hope to be back here soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I have no comments, so having said that, I would open the meeting up to the public for any comments or... Okay, hearing none. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Well, if they're parking in somebody else's spot, they're gonna have to move, there's no, they can say, it might be convenient, and it might have been there for 30 years, but they must know